reach. We are Nigerians. We keep rising to the top. We are Nigerians. We keep soaring in the sky. Oh, Nigeria, fly eagles fly to victory. We are Nigerians. We are champions, we are kings. We are Nigerians. There's no height that we can't reach. We are Nigerians. We keep rising to the top.
Viewpoints on Progress Radio and Television International. And today on the program, we have been talking about the ASU strike, especially giving you updates as to what is happening after 6 months of strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And I have been discussing this with the ASU chairman of the Federal University of Kashiri in Gombe State, in person of Dr. Shehu El Rashid. And he's still here in the studio, and it's time for calls to get to interact with Doctor, ask questions, and know ask what you want to know about the ASU strike, and let's get to interact with our viewers and listeners. The number to call us on is 080-2811-738. Keep those calls coming, and let's get to interact. Let's hear from the first caller this morning. Hello, good morning. All right, it looks like we okay. Morning. May we know your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Anas Bala. I'm calling from Kashiri.
You're welcome to the program, Anas.
I'm welcome to guest in the studio.
Okay.
Going by the issue of the strike of academic staff of universities, also, we already know that what they are doing is since 2009. Now, how many years? But the government is supposed to implement what they are agitating. So definitely, like what I'm saying in my Bible, especially when we are discussing on the ASU issue, I'm really supporting them to continue with their strike if the government is going to implement their demanding. So maybe someone will be able to say that maybe I'm not a student from the university, that's why I'm supporting ASU to continue with their strike. Recently, I have finished my national diploma at the Federal Polytechnic Bauchi, and I wish to continue with my study at the Federal University of Kashiri. So I was able to claim that I'm a student, and I am supporting them to continue with their strike since the government failed to implement their demands. All what the sector says is rightly true. I'm using to visiting the primary, secondary to see what their education activities is going on. It's totally wrong. And if they ask to suspend their strike at this situation, maybe like what you say, like what the government has neglected the primary education and secondary education, the university will going to be like that. So I'm putting them to continue with their strike if the government.
All right, thank you, Anas Bala, for making your position known on the strike action. And let's get to hear more from our viewers and listeners. 08028111738. The number is on your screen. Get to call us and contribute on the program. So, listening to a student talking about when students are lamenting that ASU should come back, and a student is actually saying this. But let's get to hear more, then we'll get to give you time to comment. Hello.
Okay. Hello, good morning.
Morning. May we know your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, ma'am.
You're welcome to the program.
Yes, my name is the platform. Let me start by saying, even though I'm a stout supporter of us on this strike, but I think it is high time for us, for both parties, to be considerate. They should be sensitive. They should be sensitive to the plight of the students and Nigerians. Both parties need to check their swords. Both parties must bury the hatchet and come to a negotiation table. Even though we have a government that seems not to care about prioritizing education, despite all the cries made by ASU, by showing them that this IPPIS is not flexible for university environment, but yet the government failed to give a listening ear. So ASU need to consider it and look into the plight of the student and the parents. Because if we continue like this, I think the parents of these students and the student that will be at the receiving end.
Okay.
When we are talking about those public officers at the top, most of their children we know are not schooling here. They are schooling abroad. So they don't have problem with ASU lingering strike. It is not affecting them in any way. Because we know so much, none of them sorry to say how they think. They only think for themselves and their immediate families. Even though we know once you are in Nigeria, you must have your relatives that are schooling here. But this is not their problem.
Okay.
So ASU, I'm calling on ASU to look into the plight of Nigerians, most especially the parents and the students that are still at home. Let not this strike escalate to the end of this year.
All right.
Something has to be done for this strike to be ended, so as for us to have an academic calendar that will go on for the students to return back to school and continue with their academic activities.
All right, thank you so much, Mohammed Modibo, for your contribution on the program. And another one pleading with ASU to consider and be, the word he used, sensitive in ensuring that the strike does not linger because it directly affects Nigerians. So let's get to hear more. Hello, morning.
Yeah, good morning, Dana.
Morning, may we know your name and where you're calling from?
Thank you very much. My name is Umar Guram.
You're welcome to the program.
Well, I think it's very pathetic. All of us Nigerians are guilty of this kind of a situation. The government is at fault, and ASU members who are Nigerians are employees of the government are also guilty. In a situation where the people who are very insensitive, both sides are insensitive to the plight of Nigerians and the common citizens of Nigerians, what I would just want to ask the doctor to be kindly and politely and rationally, what is the way out as an employee? If your employer become adamant of resolving some of the requests you made or the demands you are making to improve the services that you are going to deliver, what would be the way out? This is a question to him.
Okay.
But I think he should be on strength and basis of the federal government is adamant, is not doing what is expected to do, whoever is there in the government. And then the ASU itself is dragging the thing so far, and they are losing the kind of the sympathy they might have from Nigerians. But what is the way out finally? In a situation where an employee who was employed by an employer, and the employer refused and become adamant to meet up with the demands of the employee. Is it the strike would be the solution? What will be irrationally? What will be his own position? That's the question.
All right, thank you so much, Elijah Morogorama. And I think we should give, address the question before
okay, well, to start with the last caller who asked a question on the rationality or what otherwise the proper way to handle this thing. What I want listeners to understand is that we are in a position. The ASU struggle is all about the system. So it's either way. Yes, ASU should agree and forget about the struggle, then our system will just become like what we have in the lower level, the primary and secondary school. What we are saying, if you look at the whole struggle, it's just deliberate. They have been doing this thing, they have been prostrating even the ASU, the members. Imagine somebody staying for a good 6 months without a penny. How is he surviving? This is a struggle we are suffering too. We are in pain. But it's something that we have to sacrifice for our land. We have to sacrifice for our people to have this quality education. Believe me, all this while, if you look at it, once you allow it to go, that's all. That's all for the system.
That's all.
We as academics, we all have our children. And I'm telling you that we don't have money to send our children to private school or
Also, let me
outside.
give an analogy here. When we talk about giving quality education, you talked about the tertiary institutions struggling for the quality of education, and then you also mentioned that
quality and affordable.
And affordable. Okay,
Yes.
you also mentioned talked about primary and secondary schools not allowing universities be like primary and secondary schools. When you're building a house, Doctor, where should the focus be? Is it the top of the building or the foundation? Because we have basic education as the foundation.
Good.
So is it the foundational stage that should be the focus or the build-up?
Good. This is a very good question. The foundation is good. But by allowing the foundation to be rotten, it doesn't mean that at the top you just allow it to collapse too. If you are taking that analogy, it means we should just give up so that the whole house, the whole building will be rotten.
No, in terms of, is it not supposed to be a holistic approach to the entire education sector in the country?
ASU as a body is a union of academic staff of Nigerian universities. ASU only fights for the system it funds itself. ASU cannot go out. ASU is not a government. ASU cannot go out and say, okay, do this for primary, do this for secondary school. But as far as our union is concerned, ASU is only concerned in making a good university system, having a quality and affordable. Let me tell you, look, you see, what happened was, we started this rollover strike on 14th of February this year, and it keeps on rolling over. If you remember the last rollover we had only 4 weeks. What makes us to do? Because ASU is a union that is considerate. Our president gave a marching order to the Minister of Education to bring about the end of this lingering issue. So, considering that Mr. President gave this marching order, in our last NEC meeting, we had a lot of deliberation. At the end, we agreed, okay, look, since the government are ready to listen to us, and Mr. President has said, let's just give them 4 weeks, so that the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the minister assured the government that he will solve the problem, plus 1 week, at least it's okay. All these things, to our dismay, nothing, I say, not a single demand was met.
All right, let's get to hear more from our viewers and listeners. Hello, morning.
Good morning, Madam Dana.
Morning, may we know your name and where you're calling from?
Madam Dana, it's been a while, so my regards to the doctor in the studio.
All right.
The issue of ASU strike. So actually, both the government and the ASU have their share of blame, but the government take a lion's share over the blames we are making as Nigerians. Because government already, both the state and the federal government are not doing the necessary and needful over the issue of education. Because their daily activities and their political activities in the government were not being stopped and terminated, but only the issue of education that they are not ready to do something. So actually we are calling and drawing the attention of our government to do the necessary, because education is the only legacy that they will leave to the citizens that we will be benefiting from. But calling on the ASU, when they see there is no any alternative, government could not do anything over the issue, they should please come back to their job, to their classes, so that please they should help and look at consider the situation of the poor people in this country, because it is only the government school poor people they can afford to send their children to go and learn there. So please, they should look at this situation and do something. But government are not doing the necessary. That is really the truth. But government are not doing the necessary. That is what we are saying. Please, they have to do something, because their daily activities were not being stopped. Their transportation, whatever they are spending our money, and they are taking their children to abroad to study there, they are not doing anything, and they are not ready to do something. Please, they should do something, and also ASU has to contribute with their quota, so as our country will be as sustainable. Thank you. Have a
All
nice
right, thank you so much, Mazuka Preto, for that. I think he's talking in line with the complaint of lack of resources to be able to fund that, because he's talking about a lot of things in government not stopping
Yes.
in terms of governance because
Yeah.
of the lack of resources. But when it comes to the issue of okay, you want
Can
to
I
say
just
something?
yeah, of
Go
course.
ahead.
Well, there's one thing I want people to understand. This issue of funding ASU, being a body of intellectuals, is ASU as a unit is so flexible. Anytime you call to ASU, ASU comes for your engagement. One thing I want people to know that ASU always has solution to whatever problem. Whenever government says, I don't have money, ASU will tell you this is how to get money. Because if you look at what is happening, ASU suggested a lot of ways. In our document, the 2008 is ensuring a lot of ways of harnessing money to fund education. Only that government is so adamant. But recently, we have seen when ASU used, federal government used one of our suggestions, this 5%, recently the controversial 5% tax on coals. It's one of the ideas of ASU. So if you don't know how to fund education, if you don't know how to source money, we can tell you. Two ways. One, this money that is indirectly being looted out, rather directly or indirectly being looted out. If you can block the leakage, a lot of money will be there. Imagine just a single individual is before the government taking 109 billion.
There's a
single
lot that
person.
we can say about that 5% also, but then I know that
No.
discussion has been on
Yes,
already. And then already Nigerians are feeling the burnt of the economy.
Of course,
so
yes.
adding more taxes to Nigeria.
Whether the
it's
tax is
like
right at this time or not is something else. What we are saying is ASU always devise prefer solution. ASU brought about this issue of TED fund. Who is enjoying the TED fund now? ASU is not the one that is a government that is enjoying most part of this thing, the dividends of the TED fund.
All right, then let's hear from more callers. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just coming back just to reiterate to the doctor that we need a specific answer when we ask a question, because that will lead us to know where the direction of government is going and where the answer is going.
All right,
the strike is already not solving any problem. I ask a rational question and a rational answer. As an employee, you cannot dictate to your employer. In a situation where you cannot dictate, you cannot force them, and we agree they are adamant, they are not interested in solving any problem. You have even asked flesh to my question. If you are building a house where the foundation is very weak, is dead, and you are assuming that you are building on the upper part of the building, and then you think that you want to have a fine building from the up, is it possibly obtainable? That is not. It's just impossible.
all right.
That is what led to the death of primary basic education. Because that's the resources the universities will teach, the materials, the people they wanted to teach are from the basic. The basic is already gone.
Thank you, Alaji Morgraba. I think
what we are asking is rationally.
All right, for lack of time, this is where we can stop. But let's get to hear from the last caller. Let's give an opportunity to the last person. Hello, good morning. May we know your name and where you're calling from? Hello, we can barely hear you. Oh, the network is really not favorable for this caller, and definitely this is where we draw the curtains on picking calls this morning. So back to you, Dr. Shehu Rashid. Alhaji Gurama had to call back again to ask for his rational answer for the question: what does an employee do in this case?
Look, there's one thing I want to listen. Employee-employer relationships are contractual agreements which are already designed. In all our laws, labor laws, both domestic and international laws, collective bargaining is not a crime. It's allowed. So by saying you don't dictate, ASU is not dictating to the employer, but rather saying this is a government that claims to fight corruption. This is a government that's saying we want to block all sort of corrupt practices. And ASU is telling them that, look, this system you're working on is prone to a lot of corruptions, a lot of irregularities, and in fact, the government admitted. The Minister of Communication recently, to repress Brim, said so, and we all know. The issue of saying that you have to insist on this thing is not even the case. what ASU is insisting is that this system you are imposing on us, which is a foreign ballot system, we can devise a local domestic system that can suit our own, and of course it can block all the leakages. That was on the basis of that the then Minister of Finance, Ngozi Ekwenzola, said, okay, we've identified, we've seen that yes, there are challenges with IPPS in taking it to a university system. Go and develop your own.
Okay, so in closing now, what is the hope? Do Nigerians expect, or should Nigerians expect a call off very soon?
Well, I cannot assure Nigerians of a call off very soon. Call off whatever will be decided during our next meeting, which is scheduled for this coming Friday, 28th of August 2022. Is from there, based on various resolutions in our branches nationwide. Then the NEC will sit down and fashion out the way forward.
Okay.
Until then, no one will tell you that this is what.
But then there are other bodies that have already called off the strike. That is, I think, SANU and NASU and.
Yeah, for other bodies, I cannot talk for them. Okay. Maybe they have their own reason for calling off, which of course I cannot.
So this has been our discussion on ASU strike with Dr. Shehu El-Rashid, ASU Chairman, Federal University Cashier here in Gombe State. Thank you so much for your contributions on the program. We appreciate. Join us for the rest of our programming on Progress Radio and Television International. I have been your host, Dana Daniel Zaghi. Stay tuned.